Here we go. But before we get started, I want to show you the amount of grow out that we're working with. Our goal here is going to be to lighten her up all around with a more cool blonde. As you can see, she's quite a bit grown out and she's got a lot of warmth in there that we don't really want to see anymore. I'm going to go through my most basic sectioning for this technique with you. I have a mohawk going up the back, starting at the nape, working up through the occipital and ending at the crown. I've also left out some space on either side of each ear, and I'm working that into my side sections. I've left out some pieces in the front. That's going to be our face frame or our money piece, so to speak, and it's really important that those are not done horizontally. That's where we want maximum brightness. I also have 4 panels working up the side of the head. This is just to keep things a little bit more organized, even though we're working horizontally all the way up. I'm starting with a small slice on the very bottom near the nape of her neck, and I'm carefully painting the lightener on either side of the section, making sure not to overlap the already existing blonde. The lightener that I'm working with today is Matrix Light Master with 10 volume. We will gradually work our way toward 20 volume once we get to the front of the head. It'll go 10, 15, 20. This way, the entire head lifts relatively evenly, and we can finish it all around the same time. Something else that I want you to keep in mind is not to bring the lightener to the very tip of the foil. Because the sections are thicker than in traditional foils, the lightener is going to expand and cause bleeders. And even though we're going to cover them up with a smudge, obviously it's better not to have them at all. Something else I want you to be very conscious of is your saturation. As you can see, I'm really packing my lightener onto each section. Again, ensuring that it's not going to go to the tip of the foil so that I don't get any bleeders, but I'm painting both sides of either section. I really want to get an even lift and lift it as efficiently as possible. And with these thick of sections, the only way to get that done is with saturation. Today for my lightener, I'm using a 1 to 1.5 ratio. The consistency of your lightener is completely up to you, but I don't like it as thick as when I do hand painting, and I don't like it super thin either. So it's not runny, but it's not overly thick that it's going to dry out because we want to make sure that it doesn't. So 1 to 1.5 for me is the perfect ratio. Now, as I start getting toward the top of this section, I'm going to start working in smaller sections. So I'm taking thinner slices now, and I'm leaving out less space between each one. Another little tip that you'll see me do is after I paint the backside of the section and I place it down on the foil, I like to pop my hand underneath the foil. This is kind of going to work as a glue to hold down that section and give it a little bit more to see right there. I popped it down. Yep, you can pop it too. So I'm kind of going to speed through this part because I think it's getting a little bit repetitive, but we're going to go all the way up to the very top of the section on the top of the crown. We definitely want to make sure that that piece at the very top of the crown is the finest slice that you've taken the entire time. And then moving forward, you'll see that we'll start to move on to finer slices in general. Now for these little areas behind the ear, I'm gonna go in and take diagonal sections. I'm gonna back comb a little bit and I'm gonna saturate either side. That's gonna keep from these becoming this little like black hole area with no color. We definitely wanna brighten up those spots so that you don't just have like this unwanted depth over here, especially since we're brightening it up all over. Now I'm gonna do another diagonal. I'm also going to back comb this little section, and then we can just move on and start working horizontally. Now I've already taken my first horizontal slice just above the ear, and I didn't leave any hair out on that one. Now, all of my slices are going to be much more fine than the ones in the back. I want these to lift rather quickly. We're just using 15 volume here. This way they lift at approximately the same time as the back foils lift. As you can see here, I've still left out those pieces in the front that we're later going to go in and make super blonde. They're going to be super fine little pieces that we're coloring, and they're going to lift really fast, so I don't want them to over process. I also want to talk about this. Sometimes when you're painting the opposite side of the strand, as you'll see, this happens to me here, I took a little bit too much lightener and I got a little bit of it onto the next section. Not a big deal, just wipe it away. It's not going to do anything. Now that I've completed the first side section, I can go in and start taking small slices all around the hairline. So I'm gonna go exactly with the flow of the hair, and I'm just gonna do 3 back to back in each section, working my way around the head. And I'm going to complete these after I complete each horizontal section. Now I'm just repeating the same exact process on the opposite side of the head. So I'm going to go ahead and speed through these pretty quickly and move on to our remaining sections. Now moving on to our two top sections, although we are also going to work horizontally in these sections, I'm also taking small slices around the hairline using 10 volume in the same way that I did in my other two sections. And I'm gonna just make sure that I'm really getting all of the main areas around the head so that there's no random dark pieces left out. We really want those pieces to pop. So again, 3 back-to-back slices in each little area. Now I've moved on to 20 volume and I'm going up the rest of the head horizontally. I'm going to go directly onto the part. I want pretty much no dimension up there. So on either section on each side, I'm going right onto the part for my final section. These slices are really small. Again, I'm making sure that I'm not overlapping the already existing blonde. Now again, I am just repeating the same process on the opposite side of the head, so I'm kind of just speeding through these slides. Now that my foils have lifted in the back, I'm going to go ahead and go in between each section and sort of paint on the already existent blonde and then move on to the foil, pull it out and kind of pull that lightener down. What this is going to do is brighten up the blonde that's already there as well as remove any existent toner. Now this isn't going to damage the hair because it's not going to sit for very long, and because this lightener is not doesn't have the incubation from the foils, it's actually not going to lift the hair very much at all. We might get one level of lift out of it, which is exactly what we would need. And I'm going to work my way entirely around the head, repeating this process. So I'm kind of just speeding through it so that it doesn't get old and repetitive, but I'm just doing the same thing in each section. I've waited to do this process until the hair that I've already lightened looks like the inside of a banana peel. I want like a really nice, pale, cool blonde, so it's really important that I've lifted past most of that yellow stage. Here I'm going in with Pravana Chroma Silk 7.22 and equal parts 6N. So this is going to give us that nice shadow effect, and I'm being very careful not to get it on the pieces in the front because again, those are our money pieces and I'm only going to tap those out ever so slightly with this demi-permanent color. The reason why I choose Pravana for my smudges is because when mixed with Zero Lift, their permanent line becomes a demi line. And with that being said, it still has a pretty opaque coverage. So I'm going to cover up every line that I don't want to see. It's going to last a long time and it's just not going to budge, as a more translucent line wouldn't cover up these lines like we want it to. Also, something to keep in mind is that I'm going to let this smudge process for about 25 to 30 minutes. And the reason why is because A, it's going to last longer when you do this, and B, it's going to cover better when you do this. And we really definitely need the coverage because we don't want those lines showing back up at any point in time. So we're going to go ahead and let our smudge process for approximately 10 minutes before we add the toner. Now I'm going in with my toner. In this case, I am looking for a more translucent tone, so I went ahead and used Redken Shades EQ, and I did 9V, a little bit of 9GI, and a little bit of 9P. And this is going to give us this beautiful kind of iridescent, cool blonde. The little bit of GI does that for me. It adds that slightest bit of warmth, and so it's going to keep it from becoming a dull color. It's going to keep that brightness in there while remaining cool. I only use a dash of the GI. Most of it is 9V and 9P. So now I'm going in, I'm not combing it through yet with the root smudge, but I'm gonna go in with my Olivia Garden eye blend brush in a little while and start combing that through. But when I comb it through, I wanna be careful not to get the darker pieces pulled down on those pieces in the front that are our money pieces. Now I'm not combing it through a bunch of times, just one simple swipe of the brush on each section will be fine. And I'm going to go ahead and let this process for 20 minutes. And we made it. This is our finished result. It's nice and bright, but with a little bit of depth here at the root. And as I turn her around, you can really see those brighter sections in the front and understand why we left those pieces out. Really nice, cool blonde with a little bit of a shadowed root. Those lines are blended out perfectly, and they're not going to be coming back through anytime in the near future.